These stories of ancient giants or the ancient builders in South America are from the written historical text by Pedro Cieza de Léon from 1535 ACE. This man was a part of the Spanish conquest and considered a conquistador, but he was also considered a linguist and an explorer. He writes shocking stories of what he learned from the native Incas and what their origin story was. Throughout the lands of modern-day Ecuador, Peru, and Bolivia, he mentions that the Inca origin story always spoke about giants or their gods who built these stone monuments. I have taken these 500-year-old excerpts from his book, The Travels of Pedro Cieza de Léon, and created this compilation of his stories. Please enjoy. There are, however, reports concerning giants in Peru who landed on the coast at the point of Santa Elena close to Puerto Viejo. The natives relate the following tradition, which had been received from their ancestors from very remote times. They were arrived on the coast in boats made of reeds, as big as large ships, a party of men of such size that, from the knee downwards, their height was as great as the entire height of an ordinary man while still having good stature. Their limbs were all in proportion to the deformed size of their bodies, and it was a monstrous thing to see their heads with hair reaching to the shoulders. Their eyes were as large as small plates. They had no beards and were dressed in the skins of animals, others only in the dress which nature gave them, and they had no women with them. When they arrived at this point, they made a sort of village, and even now the sites of their houses are pointed out, but as they found no water, in order to remedy their desire, they made some very deep wells, which are truly worthy of remembrance, for such are their magnitude that they certainly must have been executed by very strong men. They dug these wells in the living rock until they met with water, and then they lined them with masonry from top to bottom in such sort that they will endure for many ages. The water in these wells is very good and wholesome, and always so cold that it is very pleasant to drink it. Having built their village and made their wells or cisterns where they could drink, these great men or giants consumed all the provisions they could lay their hands upon in the surrounding country, and so much that one of them ate more meat than 50 of the natives of the country could. As all of the food they could find was not sufficient to sustain them, they killed many fish in the sea with nets and other gear. They were detested by the natives because in using their women they killed them, and the men also in another way. But the Indians were not sufficiently numerous to destroy this new people who had come to occupy their lands. They made great leagues against them, but met with no success. All of the natives declare that God our Lord brought upon them a punishment in proportion to the enormity of their offense. While they were all together engaged in their accursed, a fearful and terrible fire came down from heaven with a great noise, out of the midst of which there is issued a shining angel with a glittering sword, with which at one blow they were all killed, and the fire consumed them. There only remained a few bones and skulls, which God allowed to remain without being consumed by the fire, as memorable of this punishment. This is what they say concerning these giants, and we believe the account because in this neighborhood they have found and still find enormous bones. I have heard from Spaniards who have seen part of a doubled tooth that they judged the whole tooth would have weighed more than a half a butcher's pound. They also had seen another piece of a shin bone, and it was marvelous to relate how large it was. These men are witnesses to the story, and the site of the village may be seen, as well as the wells and cisterns made by the giants. I am unable to say from what direction they came because I do not know. They even say that the first Incas thought of establishing their court at Tiwanaku. Another remarkable thing is that in all of this district there are no quarries whence the numerous stones could have been brought, the carrying of which must have required many people. I asked the natives, in presence of Juan de Vargas, who holds them in encomienda, whether these edifices were built in the time of the Incas, and they laughed at the question, affirming that they were made before the Incas ever reigned, but that they could not say who made them. They added that they had heard from their fathers that all we saw was done in one night. From this, and from the fact that they also speak of bearded men on the island of Titicaca, and of others who have built the edifice of Vinaque, it may perhaps be inferred that before the Incas reigned, there was an intelligent race who came from some unknown part, and who did these things. Being few and the natives many, they may all have been killed in the wars. There were people with beards in the island of Titicaca in past ages, white like ourselves, that, coming from the valley of Coquimbo, their captain, who is named Kari, arrived at the place where Chucuito now stands, whence, after having founded some new settlements, he passed over with his people to the island. He made such war upon the inhabitants that he killed them all. After a long time has passed, the Inca again saw another man resembling the first, whose name they do not mention, but they received it from their forefathers as very certain that wherever this personage came and they were sick, he healed them, and where they were blind, he gave them sight by only uttering words. Through acts so good and useful, he was much beloved by all. In this fashion, working great things by his words, he arrived at the province of the Canas. For certain reasons, the people rose against him, threatening to stone him. They saw him upon his knees, with his hands raised to the heavens, as if invoking the divine favor to liberate him from the danger that threatened him. The Indians further state that presently there appeared a great fire in the heaven, which they thought to be surrounding them. Full of fear and trembling, they came to him whom they had wanted to kill, and with loud clamor besought him to be pleased to forgive them, for they knew that this punishment threatened them because of the sin they had committed in wishing to stone the stranger. Presently they saw that when he ordered the fire to cease, it was extinguished, so that they were themselves witnesses of what had come to pass, and the stones were consumed and burnt up. On this subject they go on to say that, leaving the place where these things happened, the man arrived on the sea coast, where, holding his mantle, he went in amongst the waves and was never more seen. And as he went, so they gave him the name Viracocha, which means the foam of the sea.